Hello, everybody. I'm going to be talking about DuckDB, which hopefully some of you have heard about before. So I'm Mark Emeis, going to talk about DuckDB, which is a database tool that I found when I needed to interrogate a lot of parquet files, large parquet files in my job when I was working on some data engineering work. So high level about DuckDB, what it is, it's an in-process SQL analytics database. It's a single binary. Think SQLite, but kind of a different focal point that they're working on. It does have an in-memory version. It's open source, MIT license, you can get information there. So why is it awesome? Because it's fast. It interoperates with Panda and Polaris data frames and Apache Arrow. It has PostgreSQL compatibility, has lots of extensions built in, works with many languages, supports windowing functions, data samples, Lambda functions, etc. Concurrency works great for multiple readers, but writing's not great because it has that single database file. But if you do need multiple writers, you can do that within a single process or manage it via your application. Performance, it's great in there. So these are some of the things it does to make performance great. It does lazy loading. So if you're reading column or data store, it can just read the columns that you're looking for. It has zero copy when dealing with arrow objects. It has projection put down or push down. It's a single. The use case I had for it was I needed a single tool that can work with multiple types of data files with a SQL interface. I want to be able to transform between those file formats, use it in testing and CI pipelines. So in the beginning was the command line. Hopefully some of you get the reference to that book. If not, check with me later. But you can pipe data in and out of the CLI. It has something called dot commands when you're in the CLI, so you can change the output mode like LaTeX here. And if there's any LaTeX experts, you recognize that. It does have a GUI. When you bring it brings up a GUI like this, and you can see, maybe it's hard to see, but on the right-hand side, it kind of breaks down all of the columnar data and gives you a graph of where that data is spread across that. And that's across SQL statements or a table itself. It does work with dbeaver was the other thing I tried. You can select data from it and use all the features of dbeaver. The graphing was a little bit suspect because it didn't understand all the relationships, but being able to plug it into dbeaver is helpful as well. But we're going to focus mostly on the CLI. So if you want to load some data into DuckDB or interrogate it, you can do a describe object here. So notice I'm doing CSV, JSON, and Parquet. If I want to create tables from that, same sort of command, just to create table referencing those files directly. So if we're dealing with Parquet files, which is what I was doing a lot with, you can do a describe select, get a whole definition of what that Parquet is. You can read the Parquet, the file metadata, the key values, get the schema, and you can take a table or a query and write it out to a Parquet file directly. Now, if you're dealing with JSON, a lot of the similar capabilities, some things that they added is you can unnest the data on the way in or the way out, and you can read new line delimited JSON files, and you, of course, can write it back out as well. But when you're dealing with JSON, you're probably dealing a lot with JQ on the command line. So on the right-hand side, I have a simple JSON object, and on the right, I wrote a query that pasted or pushed that to JQ. JQ reformatted it, pushed it to DuckDB, converted it to Parquet in a different format, and then reread it in the Parquet file. So if we're working with CSVs, a problem I've had is trying to load it into Excel, and it gives you no information as to why it didn't load. Here it has this sniff CSV, and you can see on this printout that I tried to import a file that it didn't understand, and it prints out a whole laundry list of things to try. You knew I wasn't going to get by without talking about AI. So AI, Hugging Face has tons of large data sets you can interrogate. So they have this HTTPS extension that allows you to query remote data sets without pulling them down first. So here, that was an example of me querying Titanic data. What about full text search? It's built in. So I took all of the documentation for DuckDB, loaded it in by file name, and then did a query looking for where make Groovy, getting Groovy information out of that file list. So if I was looking at query plans, because I'm dealing with performance, I took 1 million entries from GitHub and broke them down by the language of the code base, and there's a ASCII chart, and then on the right is a breakdown using the query plan execution. They have something called friendly SQL in there where they've given you more friendly SQL commands. Some of the interesting ones would be able to limit the data selected based on the table size instead of just a raw number. You can do list comprehensions and slicing. They're working on something called Duck Lake. So if you're dealing with data warehousing, you're probably using Iceberg. You need a metadata catalog. Duck Lake makes SQL a catalog for that. And that is an MIT license that they're working on. And that's it for it. So go to duckdb.org to learn more about DuckDB, or grab me if you want to chat about it. You can get some of the source at on GitHub. That's it.